Welcome back, everybody. We are diving deep today into some pretty controversial waters.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking a close look at those accusations against Neil Gaiman swirling around Reddit.
Right.
I mean, you know Neil Gaiman, right? Author of Coraline the Sandman.
American Gods.
American Gods, of course. So we're not just going to list off accusations. We want to get a sense of how people are reacting and see what bigger issues all of this is bringing up.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to unpack. And we are dealing with some sensitive territory here.
Right.
Sexual assault, abuse, power dynamics, all that. So it's really important for us to be clear. We are focusing on the information, like what we're seeing in these Reddit threads, the viewpoints expressed there.
Yeah.
We are not here to judge or speculate beyond, what's right there in front of us.
Exactly. So with that said, let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What are people actually saying about Neil Gaiman? Like, what are the accusations?
So we're seeing multiple women come forward with these allegations of sexual assault and abuse against Gaiman. And the accounts, I mean, they're pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
And they seem to suggest this pattern of behavior spanning over a number of years.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how have people been reacting to this on Reddit? Have you noticed any common themes or any particularly strong reactions?
It's definitely been a roller coaster of emotions. You see the shock, the disappointment, the anger, the sadness. I think what hit me the hardest was the sense of betrayal, especially from those longtime fans. The ones who, they feel like they knew Gaiman through his work. And then this idea that, this beloved author is suddenly falling from grace.
Yeah.
It just really messes with your sense of trust, and it even makes you question your own judgment.
Yeah, totally. Have you ever experienced that, maybe with, a musician you loved, or where they're suddenly accused of something awful, and you're just like, wait, is everything I thought I knew about this person a lie? It's so disorienting.
100%. And it really forces you to face that gap between, the persona that someone projects
Right.
and their actual actions.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us to another layer of this whole thing.
Right.
Amanda Palmer.
Right. Gaiman's ex-wife. The Reddit threads definitely have some strong opinions about her, too. What are people saying about her role in all of this?
Okay, so she's being accused of complicity in Gaiman's alleged actions. Some are saying she knew about the behavior and maybe even enabled it, by befriending vulnerable women who later became victims.
Oh, wow.
And then there's also a lot of anger about those reports that she refused to cooperate with police investigations.
Yeah, I saw that. And then there's that song, Wakanua. The timing of it all, those lyrics. It's hard to ignore the fact that it seems to be directly addressing all of this.
You can't really miss it. I mean, lines like, a few more corpses in the sack, you'll get away with it. It's just the same old script.
Yeah.
It paints a pretty damning picture.
Right. And it also kind of feeds into this bigger conversation that's popping up in these threads a lot about performative feminism.
Yeah.
For those who maybe aren't as familiar with that term, can you break down what it means and how people are connecting it back to Gaiman?
Sure. So performative feminism, it's essentially when someone, and typically we're talking about a man here, very loudly proclaims these feminist ideals, right? But their actions don't match up.
Right.
At all. It's like using the label of feminist as a shield or as a way to gain trust. But then behind closed doors, they engage in all this harmful behavior.
Yeah, I've definitely encountered that.
Yeah.
Where someone talks a big game about their beliefs, but their actions tell a different story. It really makes you question their authenticity, especially when there's a power dynamic involved.
100%. And, with Gaiman, he was often seen as this, progressive feminist figure.
Right.
But now these accusations are coming out, and it makes people wonder, was that all just a facade? Was he using that reputation to manipulate women? It just really throws a wrench in how we assess someone's character, especially when it's someone we've admired, from afar.
Right. And then there's another layer to this whole thing, which is, we can't really ignore the fact that Gaiman's parents were high-ranking members of the Church of Scientology.
Right.
How has that connection been woven into these Reddit discussions? What are people saying?
Yeah, it's definitely added this whole other dimension of complexity.
Right.
You see some users speculating about Scientology's culture of secrecy.
Yeah.
And how that might have played a role in keeping these allegations quiet for so long.
Because Scientology's their tactics can be pretty intense, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially during the time when Gaiman's parents were reportedly like really high up,
Right.
the Guardian's office, which was known for being, well, aggressive
Yeah.
with their intelligence operations.
Wow.
One user pointed out that back then Scientology was, I mean, they were a force. They were running these massive campaigns to silence critics,
Hmm.
to protect their image.
Yeah.
So, it makes you wonder if, like, the fear of retaliation from an organization that powerful
Right.
could have prevented some victims from speaking out sooner.
Yeah, it's a chilling thought. It really is. And I mean, it makes you think about the potential impact of that kind of environment on Gaiman himself.
Yeah.
Even if he has, publicly distanced himself from Scientology.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's no way to draw a direct line,
Mm.
from his parents' involvement to his own actions.
Mhm.
But, it's just another layer,
Yeah.
another layer of intrigue in this already strange story.
Yeah. So we've got these serious allegations. We've got this whole whirlwind of emotions on Reddit. We've got the performative feminism discussion, the Scientology connection. It's a lot. But then there's the question of Gaiman's work itself.
Right.
How are people dealing with this idea of separating the art from the artist?
I think that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there is no easy answer.
Yeah.
Some users, they're like, that's it, I'm done. Boycotting his work entirely. They say they just can't support him anymore, financially,
Right.
emotionally,
Right.
whatever. And then others are really wrestling with this, trying to figure out how to reconcile their love for, his stories with this new information.
I saw one comment that really stuck with me. Someone said their collection of Gaiman comics just feels worthless now. Can you imagine having something you cherish, something you loved, suddenly feeling tainted by these accusations? It's got to be such a visceral reaction.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, for a lot of people, Gaiman's stories, they provided comfort, escape, even like a sense of identity.
Yeah.
So to have that connection like suddenly broken,
Right.
it leaves them wondering, like, what do I do with all these feelings, all these memories tied to his work?
It's tough. It really raises the question. I mean, have you ever felt that way about an artist, whose work you loved? It's a really difficult situation to be in. It makes you think about the whole nature of fandom.
Absolutely.
Like, how much do we invest in the people behind the art?
And I think that investment can be particularly intense with someone like Gaiman.
Right.
Because his work often explores these, like, really dark themes. And it delves into the complexities of, like, human nature.
Yeah.
So it gets very personal.
This whole situation, it's heavy. There's like this darkness to it that's hard to shake. And honestly, the thing that disturbs me the most are the allegations that some of this abuse might have happened in front of a Gaiman's young son.
Yeah, that's definitely a very disturbing aspect of all of this.
I mean, the potential for like long-term trauma
Right.
from witnessing something like that, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it really is. It just reminds us of the, the ripple effects. The ripple effects of abuse and how, the actions of adults, they can have just devastating consequences for children.
Right.
And the comments on Reddit, I mean, they really reflect that concern. There's a lot of sadness,
Yeah.
worry for Gaiman's son, a lot of questioning, about the role Gaiman should play in his son's life moving forward.
It's hard to even fathom the impact this must have had on him.
Absolutely. It just adds another layer of complexity to this whole situation.
Yeah.
Raising questions about trauma, the long-term effects of that.
Right.
And, the responsibility we all have, the responsibility we have to protect children.
Wow. Okay, so we've got the accusations themselves, we've got the, the reactions on Reddit,
Yeah.
we've got this whole Amanda Palmer thing, and then the unsettling element of Gaiman's son. It's a lot to process. What stands out to you as the most impactful or maybe unsettling element of this deep dive so far?
I think what really gets to me is this clash between the persona Gaiman cultivated.
Right.
He was this progressive, imaginative, almost mythical figure.
Yeah.
And then you have this darkness, the darkness of these allegations.
Right.
It just forces us to confront, I think, the complexities of human nature
Yeah.
and how little we truly know about the people we admire.
And for me, it's the sense of betrayal
Yeah.
that so many fans are expressing. Like,
Yeah.
that feeling of having something you loved suddenly tainted by these accusations. It's a really stark reminder that even the people we hold in high esteem, they are capable of causing harm.
And it really makes you think, how do we reconcile those two things?
Yeah.
How do we navigate this world? the world of art and fandom,
Right.
knowing that the people we admire, I mean, they're flawed, they're complex,
Right.
they're
Yeah.
capable of both great good
Yeah.
and terrible harm.
It's a question that really lingers, you know?
It does.
Even after you close those Reddit threads.
Yeah. And it's a question we'll continue to explore as we delve even deeper into this whole story.
Mm.
This whole thing, it really makes you think about our responsibility as fans, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Like, we put these artists up on pedestals sometimes.
Right.
We elevate them, but then what happens when they do something like this?
Exactly.
Can we even separate the art from the artist?
Yeah.
Should we?
And social media makes it even trickier, doesn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
I mean, fans have so much access now.
Mm-hmm.
They can hold these creators accountable
Yeah.
in a very public way.
It's like we're all on this giant digital jury, constantly like weighing in on accusations, debating consequences.
It's powerful, but
Yeah.
kind of scary, too.
Scary is a good word for it, because you see it in some of these Reddit threads.
Mm-hmm.
That rush to judgment,
Yeah.
mob mentality forming,
Right.
even in spaces that are supposed to be about thoughtful discussion.
It's true. And it's easy to get caught up in the outrage,
Right.
to make assumptions before we have all the facts. I mean, we've all seen how quickly social media can turn toxic.
Oh, absolutely.
Cyberbullying, harassment, it's a mess.
Yeah, it's a reminder that these platforms, I mean, they can be amazing for amplifying voices and holding
Yeah.
people accountable,
For sure.
but they can also be incredibly destructive.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to remember that, we have to be responsible
Yeah.
when we're participating in these online discussions
Mm.
to approach complex situations with nuance and to resist jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings up a bigger question, too, I think. Like, how do we even form our beliefs, make decisions in this world where we're bombarded with information from all sides?
It can be overwhelming.
Right. It's like drinking from a fire hose.
Totally.
You know? We're told to trust journalists, experts, but even they can get things wrong or be biased.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add in the emotional element, especially when it's someone you admired, you know?
Right.
It becomes even harder to filter what's true.
Oh, yeah. It makes you realize we need like a whole new set of critical thinking skills for this digital age.
Don't we?
We have to be able to evaluate sources, recognize biases, consider different perspectives.
And be willing to change our minds.
Yes, when new information comes up.
Yeah. A little humility goes a long way. Admitting that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
Being open to being wrong.
It's so easy to get stuck in those echo chambers, though.
Isn't it? Clinging to our beliefs even when the evidence contradicts them. It's human nature, I guess.
It is. But we have to fight against it.
Yeah. You know, speaking of different perspectives, there's something else that's been really interesting in these Reddit threads.
Okay.
You see these little glimpses into Gaiman's life
Mm-hmm.
from people who actually knew him personally.
Right. Like firsthand accounts.
And it's almost jarring, you know?
It is.
Because what they say sometimes totally clashes with this public image he built for himself.
Totally. Like, one user mentioned going to school with Gaiman.
Huh.
They were shocked by these allegations.
Yeah.
Someone else talked about having this signed copy of Good Omens that they, used to think was cool.
Yeah.
But now it just feels tainted.
It makes you realize how little we actually know about people.
Right.
Even those we think we know well.
Mm-hmm.
Our perceptions are based on such limited information.
It's true. We think we know someone based on their work or their online persona.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always more to the story.
Always. And sometimes that more can be really unsettling.
Yeah. It's a good reminder not to put people on pedestals.
Yeah.
Even our heroes are human. They mess up.
They do.
They're capable of both good and bad.
Yeah. There's even a comment from a journalist who interviewed Gaiman for Rolling Stone once.
Wow. Talk about a surreal experience.
Right. To look back on that interaction, knowing what they know now.
It's like the ground shifted beneath their feet.
Totally. They thought they were interviewing this respected author, and now that perception is shattered.
It makes you wonder how many other people are out there
Yeah.
who crossed paths with Gaiman and are having similar experiences right now.
Reevaluating their interactions with him,
Yeah.
their memories of him.
In light of these accusations.
It highlights those ripple effects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just the individuals directly involved, it's everyone in their orbit, too.
It's true. And, for those who had positive experiences with someone who is accused of something like this, it can be really difficult.
Oh, yeah. They might be struggling with disbelief, denial, even guilt.
Absolutely. And
Hmm.
it's important to acknowledge those feelings.
Hmm.
To say, hey, it's okay to feel conflicted. There's
Right.
no right or wrong way to process information like this.
Exactly. But it's also important to remember that even these firsthand accounts, these glimpses into Gaiman's personal life, they're just one piece of a complicated puzzle.
Right.
They don't necessarily prove guilt or innocence.
Exactly. We have to let the legal process play out,
Yeah.
focus on the evidence,
Hmm.
and avoid making sweeping judgments based on, anecdotes or online speculation.
So we've talked about the accusations, the reactions, the art versus artist debate, those personal accounts.
Hmm.
What else from these Reddit discussions do you think is important to highlight?
I think it's really interesting how this whole situation has sparked a broader conversation
Okay.
about sexual abuse
Hmm.
and the power dynamics that fuel it.
In what way?
Well, you see people sharing their own stories
Hmm.
about assault or harassment,
Right.
connecting those personal experiences to the Gaiman allegations. Like, these accusations have created a space for people to talk about their pain,
Hmm.
to find support from others.
Mm.
It's really heartbreaking to see how common these experiences are.
It is.
But it's also encouraging that people are finding the courage to speak up.
Absolutely. It shows the power of movements like #MeToo,
Mm-hmm.
in giving victims a voice and challenging that culture of silence that protects abusers.
Right. And it just drives home the point that these issues, they go way beyond one person,
Hmm.
one industry. It's systemic.
It is. It's everywhere.
And one of the recurring themes, is this idea that power imbalances create environments where abuse is more likely to happen.
And that's not just Hollywood or the literary world, right?
No, it's everywhere. Workplaces, schools, religious institutions, even families.
Yeah. Anywhere there's a power differential, there's that potential for abuse.
Exactly. And it's not always these obvious displays of power either.
Right.
It can be subtle,
Hmm.
based on age, gender, social status,
Yeah.
even just like popularity.
Yeah. So the more we understand these dynamics, the better equipped we are to challenge them, create safer spaces.
And there's also a lot of discussion about the importance of believing victims, making it easier for them to come forward.
It is huge. For so long, victims have been silenced.
I know. Disbelieved, blamed.
Blamed.
It has to change. We have to create a culture where survivors feel safe sharing their stories.
Without fear of judgment or retaliation.
Exactly.
And we also have to acknowledge that these conversations can be hard for survivors.
Yeah.
Triggering. We need to approach these topics with sensitivity? Prioritize their well-being.
And one thing I really appreciate about these Reddit discussions is you see people offering support to each other,
Yeah.
sharing resources,
Mhm.
building this sense of community,
Yeah.
like we're in this together.
It's a good reminder that even in the dark corners of the internet, there's still hope.
Right.
There's still good. There are people who care.
People who listen, people who want to help.
Yeah. People who want to fight for change.
And we all have a role to play in that. Speaking out against abuse, believing victims,
Yeah.
challenging those power dynamics, creating spaces where everyone feels safe and respected.
It's a tough deep dive,
It is.
but it's important.
It is. We've explored some really dark territory.
Mm-hmm.
But it also highlights, I think, the resilience of the human spirit, the power of collective action.
It really does. And it's just the beginning.
Right.
These conversations have to continue.
We have to keep learning from each other
Yeah, and work together.
to build a world where abuse is no longer accepted.
This situation with Neil Gaiman, it's not over. There's going to be more revelations, more discussions.
Okay.
We have to approach it all with a sense of responsibility, recognizing how serious these accusations are, but also upholding due process, presumption of innocence.
Absolutely. As we move forward, I think the most important thing is to focus on the well-being of the victims.
Yes.
Their voices need to be heard. Their experiences need to be validated.
And we need to be incredibly careful not to contribute to victim blaming or to minimize the impact of abuse.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We also have to be aware of the potential for re-traumatization for everyone involved.
Yeah.
These conversations can be so triggering.
They can.
We have to prioritize creating spaces where people feel safe sharing their experiences.
Right. Without fear. And as we continue to engage with Gaiman's work, whether we choose to boycott it or not,
Right.
we have to do so with a critical eye, with an informed perspective.
We have to think about the power dynamics. Recognize the ways in which art can be used to manipulate and exploit.
Yeah.
And always, always prioritize the well-being of those who've been harmed.
This has been a real journey,
It has.
you know? This whole deep dive, confronting these uncomfortable truths about fandom, grappling with how common abuse is, exploring human behavior.
It's not easy,
It's not.
but it's necessary.
It is. And, there are no easy answers about how we move forward.
Right.
But I think through open dialogue, empathy, a commitment to justice.
Accountability.
Yeah. That's how we can start to create a better world, a more just world.
A world that's more focused on healing.
We've covered so much today.
We have the accusations, the reactions on Reddit, the whole power dynamics thing, performative feminism, the impact on Gaiman's son, those firsthand accounts from people who knew him. It's a lot.
And then the bigger societal implications,
Mm-hmm.
the importance of believing victims, holding abusers accountable. I'm a little overwhelmed, to be honest.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
It really is. It's important to give yourself time to process it all. Don't rush to judgment.
Right.
There's no need for definitive conclusions right now.
Right.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
You need to reflect.
And it's a good reminder, too, that this is just one story,
Right.
one tiny piece of a much bigger puzzle.
These issues, abuse, power, accountability,
Yeah.
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
They need our attention.
They do.
Yeah.
They demand action.
What's resonating with you the most as you reflect on everything we've discussed?
I keep coming back to this idea that we all have a responsibility to challenge harmful behavior,
Right.
to create safe spaces for victims to come forward.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel powerless in situations like this.
It is. But we can make a difference.
Right.
Through our words, our actions, our choices.
Yeah. I love that. It's like even amidst all this darkness, there's still hope.
There is. We can choose to be a part of the solution. Stand up for what's right. Help create a better world.
It's a powerful message to hold on to.
It is.
Yeah.
As we continue having these difficult conversations.
It's been a heavy journey,
It has.
but enlightening.
It has.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for, for coming along on this deep dive with us.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's a lot to process, but we really do believe these conversations are so important to have.
And we also want to say, if you or someone you know needs help, please reach out. There are resources available. You're not alone.
You're not alone. This whole situation, it highlights, behind the headlines and the online chatter, there are real people whose lives have been deeply impacted.
Right.
We focus so much on these Reddit threads, but they really are like just one perspective, one tiny piece of this whole story.
That's right. There's so many other viewpoints out there that we haven't even touched on. For example, we haven't looked into Gaiman's own statements,
Right.
his response to these allegations. And we also haven't really explored the perspectives of those who believe he's innocent,
Yeah.
or those who are really struggling to reconcile these accusations with the man they thought they knew.
It's a good reminder that even when we think we've thoroughly examined something, there's always more to uncover, more viewpoints to consider, more nuance to explore.
And that's what makes it so important is keep seeking out those diverse perspectives,
Yeah.
to challenge our own assumptions and to be open to those uncomfortable truths. This journey of discovery, even when it leads us to some tough places.
Yeah.
It's a big part of what makes it all so fascinating.
It's not always easy, but it's how we grow, I think.
Right.
Both individually and as a society. So I want to, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with something to really think about, something to ponder. How do you deal with this idea that someone who can create beauty and wonder through their art could also be capable of causing real harm, causing pain to others? It's a tough one.
It's a profound question,
Yeah.
and there's no simple answer.
No. But it's one that's worth wrestling with as we try to understand human nature and make sense of the world.
Absolutely.
So think about that. And remember the importance of empathy, critical thinking, and that commitment to justice.
Yeah.
Those are the tools that will help you navigate these situations, these complex and often unsettling situations.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for being here, everyone. We'll be back soon to explore more of the topics that matter.
Until then, stay curious.
Stay informed and stay engaged.